Or actually, no, we do. Jenna came in. I was kind of myself. So gonna call this meeting to order at 4:31 on May 27th, 2025. Welcome to everyone here. Thank you all for coming. And we will start with our roll call. I am present. Vice Chair Donovan,
Present.
Commissioner Fribley,
Present.
Commissioner Swenson Harris is absent, Commissioner Helmer. Commissioner Howard, let me know that he'd be absent, Commissioner Jones.
Here.
All right. Quorum is present, which means we can get started here. Tom's gonna put up perfect. So this is our agenda. There's another little bit on the next page. It's our standard next steps and updates. And does anyone have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
I will be leaving early because my next meeting's at 5:30 and then the next one's at
Absolutely.
6 and then the next one's at 6:30 and then the next one's at 7.
You like being the counselor?
Why I make the big bucks.
You make the big bucks. Okay, well, no, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Seeing no additions or corrections, we'll call that approved. And let's see here. Do you have any thing for us?
I don't.
We'll put it at the front.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you for asking though. Appreciate it.
All right, we had no public comments or business from the audience. We have no pending historic land use applications. Tom, do you have any updates on anything potentially pending?
No, nothing else that I'm aware of that would be coming in. We do still have 546 7th Street under review. It took them a little bit to get paid. So I am starting that report, although it still has to go through our typical type 2 functions through our development review committee and then the 2 weeks of public notice. So I'll have that report ready to release by the time that is elapsed.
So is the 607 7th Street, is that?
That one,
Resolved?
yeah, that's resolved since it was a type 1. I teed it up, I got some feedback and then just
Yeah.
finished out that report.
All right. Any questions? I guess, do you have any questions about just like how that typically flows when it, like what types of things we review versus just go to staff? We haven't talked about that. It's been a while since we've had new folks.
Yeah, I guess the observation I had about it was that the one that came in first and that has been resolved looked like it really wasn't that primary. I think you described it as not being a primary dwelling.
Right,
in the
yeah.
Historic district, and so, yeah, it seemed like it wasn't eligible for registration, for example, at the time the district was created and it was built in the 40s.
Yeah, built in the 40s, there were modifications at some point that were captured at the time of the survey in 1984.
Yeah.
So that's when it referred to, I think, vinyl windows having been replaced or put in at that point. Aluminum to vinyl siding at the time, I think, was also the case. But it was a compatible, non-contributing, so there is the potential that it could contribute in the future if they had, presented materials up front and it wasn't another one of these reactionary violations that we then have to deal with. But yeah, that one was not as intensive like this other one because of its contributing or non-contributing status.
Perfect. Now we'll move on to discussing the 2025-26 work plan. So this is kind of a fun, and we do this every grant cycle. So our grant cycle is 18 months to spend the money, but we do it every 2 years. So there's 6 months at the end of the grant cycle, I believe, that is not part of maybe it's at the beginning of the grant cycle. Maybe it's start of the biennium, then we have 6 months to apply. I think that's great. And so we're heading into the next application period. And so wanted to have this group discuss any sort of things we're interested in, things we want to take a look at. This is the start, not the end of this process. So does anyone have any thoughts about what they'd want this group to be doing? This is the first time that we aren't gonna sink a bunch of money into surveys in a while. So, well, yeah, it's the first time we don't have to sink a bunch of money into a survey for a while. That's pretty privileged.
What do you got? Jen?
Okay, we've talked about for years, landscape survey, so maybe another survey. Also, or additionally, a accessory building survey. Also, differently, last December/November. I went to that SHPO program up in Dallas, and there were two, well, specifically independents who presented at Dallas. They're close together, but different. Independence, Oregon, has a really cool, or had a really cool program. I don't know if they still do. They just went through a whole dumpster fire of also budget cuts, which they're like shutting down their entire museum and selling the building, and it's chaotic. But ignoring all of that, different department, they have within their, I don't know if it's in the Historic Commission, but they use the same money, the CLG money. They use some of their CLG money to offer two things, which I think is really cool. One of them is they have, I'm not sure exactly how they have it structured, and maybe we need to bring the guy in to talk about it, but they have an architect kind of on retainer or as a consultant, maybe sort of like our, consultant that we use for reviewing applications. They have one on board to consult with homeowners in the historic district when they have questions or want to do an addition or something and don't know where to start, and very likely would go down a stumbly path versus a informed path. So kind of helping them just like aim the right way. Secondly, they have a consultant on board that is a wood window expert, restaurant expert. So somebody to help them assess what they have. Are they original? Are they salvageable? A lot of owners don't see the potential in their wood windows. They just, oh, they're old and drafty, they need to go, right? But there's obviously we deal with a lot of the limitations of that and challenges of uninformed tearing, ripping and tearing. So having somebody on hand to go answer questions and consult with them early, and they just have, a chunk of money that they pay out these consultants. And it'd be interesting to understand how much actually happens, like how many of these consultants or consultations do they do in a year? How many requests do they have for that? Fred Evander, he's their planner. He's their Tom. He's the planner in the city that babysits their historic stuff. So he would be the person, he was the one presenting about this at the event, and he would be great to maybe we get him on Zoom during one of our next meetings to just understand how they structure it. How do they contract with these people? How much interest do they actually have? I don't know. Obviously, we could just set, a certain amount of money. Sure. And when it's spent, right? But it seems like a nice offering we can make to our district. There's also various things we could do with the museum as a collab. They're doing these history talks. We could help collaborate and fund some of those. For the historic atlas, ultimately the phase 2 of that, once we get the book published, we want to do an interactive story map. So there's the story maps, like Lane County has all of the the historic sites on the story map. So getting it all loaded into the GIS story map program, potentially we could collaborate with them, get that online. I'll stop.
They're great. Other thoughts?
Well, one thought about this business with the contractors, is it possible, or has it ever been done, to have an approved contractor list for the Washburn district? I mean, people who, as contractors, say, I know what's going on here, I know the process, I'm willing to, work with people who are making historic restoration.
The city typically doesn't do that because then they're showing favoritism to one over another. So just on a city level, I totally get what you're saying, and I don't disagree because it would certainly help us in the long run. However, there tends to be a policy that we don't have like an engineering or process or, you know, a list of people.
I'm thinking this would be totally voluntary, and maybe if nobody shows up, you know, to do it or qualify as a contracting list. I've seen it in the context of cities and special purpose districts needing to have people who will comply, you know, with others, things, not historic districts only, but,
Yeah, maybe a way that the list says, these are the contractors that have been certified to, you know,
or if
to
even,
meet the standards of the historic district or, you know, what have you, but I don't know if, I don't know.
Yeah, part of the problem is we don't have a separate like agency for the Washburn. We administer it as the city.
right.
Mhm.
Only other avenue I could think is like through the Chamber of Commerce maybe
Mm.
to have a list, but I don't know how we could be party to that without
Yeah, like,
doing that favor to
I
them.
guess another list I'm familiar with is septic installers, you know, if you're gonna be on the, if you're approved as somebody who's
Like licensed.
licensed, you've studied the code, you're agreeing to comply with the county's requirements for septic tanks, you're on the list. If you're not on the list, you can't design, you can't build within the jurisdiction, you know, would be the idea. It may not work because if you don't have people who are really kind of knowledgeable and willing to step forward and say, I'm on board with this, then it isn't a workable idea.
What it does speak to though is something that I think have tried to do a little bit, but could continue to do a lot more is just like that education component. So like we did the postcard, we sent it to realtors, right? Realtors, when you're like introducing these homes to people, prospective residents, like if the realtor's informed, theoretically, they can help inform the homeowner about like, these are expectations that you'll be getting into and similar, like maybe we've been talking about doing this window workshop, like, is there some sort of workshop we could be doing? You know, I think the window workshop honestly is a great possible first step into maybe not a certified list, but just helping to really educate the public and potentially other professionals about the requirements for the district and the just stewardship in general, like, right?
Well, and I wonder maybe if we made it, as it's been now, it's been kind of this like one-off thing. I wonder if we did more of like a consistent, like, we get together a presentation.
Yeah.
That's like twice a year. We'll let people know what's happening and they can come and they can listen to us tell them all about the requirements for their historic commission. And you know, what does that entail? And obviously entirely voluntary, but that if, you know, realtors, if builders, if residents want to come, learn like, hey, here are some things we see. Hey, here are these places to keep in mind. That, you know, you should, every house is different, consult with your people, but here's some common rules of thumb.
I mean, one thing that we could do to make that fun, not that that would be fun for some people, but to make it like more fun,
Sure.
for, like the average person. What if we, this is like a whole programming thing and like so much effort, somebody has to lead it. But maybe we can get some Washburn District residents who are stoked, who've been on house tours before, back when that used to happen. If we could do a baby house tour or host, you know, like at one property a quarter or something, somebody who wants to do a cool history show and tell about their house. And that gives us a really great opportunity to talk about why this is an example of stewardship, have a lot of information about what, you know, what you need to do to keep your house, maintain your house, legally update your house. And then that could be an opportunity if people want to have business cards in a pile or something, or some literature, like maybe there's a way to make that happen too, but some way to show a good case study, kind of.
Yeah, the auto dealership here seems like it might be ripe for something like that. It's looking pretty vacant there.
Well, it is vacant, yeah.
And I have some car enthusiast friends and I've gotten a little feedback from them. They're not local. But for the right person, you know, that could be a very cool place to have a little vintage car museum or, you know, show off their collection.
The city
The
owns
city
that,
owns
just so
it.
you know.
Yeah, okay.
They have it sort of in line with that whole corner lot. like-
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a
Um,
prime spot.
And another thing is that you're all talking about after people own their home,
Mhm.
letting them know, but what about is it possible to connect with LCOG and have something put on our lid that like literally stands out? Cause that's what they do, right? They upload stuff to our lid and every realtor, anytime you're looking at a home or you're looking at anything, most people go to our lid.
Yeah.
That says, this is a historic home,
Yeah.
please see the rules and,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good
regs.
idea.
Is there not already something in the,
It might just say that it's in the historic overlay,
Yeah,
but
I'm
it's not
saying
like.
something that like.
Okay,
pops.
I see what
I'm
you're
saying
saying.
something that,
You have to even know to go over
Yeah.
and toggle that link
Okay.
on to see if you're in the district or not.
That's a
Okay.
great, like,
That is
we've done the like email or the mailer to the realtors and like the postcards they can put on a thing, but having it actually in the listing is a great.
and we do
idea.
the same with like flood zones
Yeah,
and like if you're in a
yeah.
floodway or whatever and
Yeah.
you try to educate realtors,
Mhm.
but the reality is that if they see that, then the first thing they
Right.
can
Totally.
mention is, hey, you know, it looks like there's something historic on here. Maybe we should check that out.
Yeah, I can reach out to the realtors if we wanna just chase
That's
that down.
interesting.
Yeah,
I like that? I don't know what exact, I mean,
they just need to somehow
Yeah,
like
mo-
put it
something
in their
more.
listing, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know how we get them to connect that dot, like when they're researching it. You know, how do we make sure that they're seeing that it's historic in order to then make that bold in the listing, right?
Right.
That's the dot that needs to be connected.
Okay.
It's an interesting.
That'd be something to talk to Lane Council of Governments about because they're nerdy people. They love doing that kind of stuff. So it's kind of what they do
Yeah.
it's true.
for a fee.
Yeah.
They do charge you for it, but
I mean, we're trying to spend money.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
like I'm looking at all these things, I'm like, oh, these are great. And they spend very little, well, the surveys spend a lot of money, but.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people reading the like, oh, I'm in an HOA, no big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
And for the most part, it's not, but if you
Right.
buy a house and all of a sudden you find out you've got all these rules,
Yeah.
you can't paint your house a certain color, you get the same kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
So letting people know in advance, I think
Mhm.
is really helpful. Me.
One thing that's been on my mind is the historic review guidelines. Those have been sitting there for 40 years and some change. And I don't know where we're at on I don't know how the code review would even hit that, if at all. And it's gonna be a pretty substantial like revision. If we wanna revise, maybe we just like them how they are, I don't know. They're just kind of unwieldy to apply, like, I think it's hard for a homeowner to look at those guidelines and say, is what I'm doing within these guidelines?
They're not very clear and objective.
Yeah, they are not, well, they're
Yeah.
not, they don't have to be,
Yeah, they don't have to be.
but,
It would help though.
yeah. I mean, that's the
I
whole-
mean, the sections that are broken out, and I just used this talking with someone earlier today, but I like that it's clear how it states, you know, for citing or whatever portion of the guidelines you go to, it says historic commission review required. If it doesn't say that, which isn't explicitly clear, but if you put it together, you'll see that, oh, well, this isn't listed here for paint color or whatever, you know, kind of project you might be doing. If it doesn't say it, you don't need review. If it does say it, the problem is people having that in the first place. How do we distribute that? Could we mail out copies of it? I don't know.
A lot of paper, but maybe like a QR code website says for
We were
complete copy.
Given our recent violations, we were thinking of a cost-effective way, instead of doing a mailer to everybody, not how much money we have right now for another mailer out to the community, but just a, hey, FYI, you're in the district, here's some things you might need to know, maybe have a clear link. That's, I mean, obviously it's printed, but that
Sure.
someone could type in that doesn't have a whole bunch of numbers or crazy URL to it. To get to the guidelines online to access them, but yeah, like sandwich board QR was the first thing that Mark came up with. Of course, you'd have to be savvy enough to use the QR code. So yeah, that one's still kind of up in the air, but more education on living in the district. What does it mean? What do you need to do for X, Y, and Z needs to be out there.
Maybe depending on timing, And as we talk about other things, like we have a few things that could be worthy of a mailer that maybe could be a package deal,
Yes.
like if we do the window workshop.
Mhm.
Heritage Award stuff maybe,
Yeah.
and then throw a letter in there with a resource link, sticking a postcard in there. Just-
Yeah, and the guidelines are, they're
Hefty.
Yeah, not the
hefty,
whole.
so
book,
it
but
would
like
take.
A piece of paper that
Yeah,
links them to the
yeah,
guidelines, I just.
For
want
that, yeah, and just, clearing up, we could mail it, but those would be like certified postage. Needed to go in. Yeah.
Maybe there's just, we print a handful that are available for Washburn residents if they want a physical copy to pick up at the planning office.
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole box of them right now,
Oh.
so, I mean, if we could hand them out, that would be great, or have them up at the front for
Yeah,
people to
like
take,
people
but.
get the mailer and they want a hard copy, they're like, oh, I'll go get one,
Yeah.
Right. Or they could request a hard copy, but just not default with them.
Yeah. But yeah, then there's the other part of updating them, so.
Yeah, and I guess that's maybe part of the question is like. It obviously, council can go many ways, and there's a lot more latitude in this arena than there is in other places, but it's just, is that gonna be an us side activity, or is that going to be put somewhere else? And like that could have a pretty substantial impact on our budget if it's gonna come out of our SHPO money.
And that seems like if we were to be working on that, that's something we would absolutely hire a consultant for, right? Yeah. Please, dear God.
Like, it's, I mean, it's 80 pages,
Yeah.
right, or something.
Yeah, because I mean, it goes into commercial buildings
Yeah.
too, it's not just residential and.
I mean, just assessing and understanding and comparing it with other examples and making sure that we're current and I don't know.
Or do we
best
want to break it
practice.
even
Right.
for residential only to have a smaller section? And possibly be able to distribute easier.
So that's a question mark that might impact some things. Okay. And then knocked out a lot of the like lingering projects over the last few years. And like so we still have trees in this cycle, right? That was our bonus winter. Do we move trees?
We moved trees for Dr. Lewis's
Okay.
project, yeah.
So I want to keep trees on the list as a thing. Yeah, obviously that goes into the landscape survey a little bit too.
Does the walking tour guide include trees or?
No,
Mm,
we've never done a catalog of trees to my knowledge, I'm told.
But
Oh, we
the
could.
tree guy does a walking tour that includes a bunch of special Springfield trees. Like, I feel like we could probably partner with him and.
And
Who does that? Who does the walking tour with trees?
Whitey Lewis? Whitey, Whitey, I think it's Lewis.
and then I believe William and Lane Foundation is doing a big like tree planting like restoration type of thing because of all of the trees that fell down in the ice storm.
Mm.
And so, I mean, it's a Team Springfield broader. We're looking at trees, so.
I mean, longer, bigger term, it would be nice somehow to get Springfield back on the Tree City situation because it lost its Tree City status.
We're working on it, there's,
know that
yeah,
there's
staff
simmering-
internal,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that only would extend to public trees and I'm the squeaky wheel trying to get us to have private trees,
We just-
so covered in that.
Just lost enough trees over time that we lost our designation. Enough public trees. I'm not sure how many is the quota.
Anita's Tree City.
Yeah, everybody's tree city.
Right, I mean, it's not hard to be necessarily. But yeah, I would like to see us have a private tree
Because you
preservation.
also have to have a tree commission, right? Like there's quite a few different
Yes.
pieces of it that you have to set up in a tree ordinance and
And X amount of money spent on trees per capita, I think, in the city or something like that, so, yeah. There's a few criteria.
did anyone see the giant sequoia come down last week? It was a big tree
Where?
removal undertaking. I don't know if it was literally in the Washburn. I'll have to check my notes. I just stopped briefly, but folks had like their lawn chairs out and were watching it because it was a whole
I think I heard about that.
process. Yeah, it's impressive.
Was it dying or just it needed to be moved?
What I heard from one of the folks watching was that it had quite shallow roots that were messing up a lot of like foundations of multiple homes, and it was in someone's backyard. It wasn't one of the like very prominent street trees. But yeah, it was kind of cool to watch. But I don't know whether it would have been a historic tree, but certainly it was a huge sequoia.
Any other ideas?
I've got one thing just from a staff standpoint
Yes.
on a land use action that occurred last year. As Counselor Doyle will remember, we have the annexation of the Ganson property out here,
Oh, no.
the long narrow strip that we did.
Yeah, we're done with that. Please tell me.
Yeah, we're done with it, and their subdivision is approved now.
Oh, good.
And I just
Are they gonna subdivide it into all of those lots on either side?
just down one side,
Okay,
kind of the Raleighwood or the
okay.
east side of
Sure.
that strip, but one of the Gateway Refinement Plan criteria designates this was the old Sierra Pacific Spur
Mm.
Railway.
So it
And
used to
this
be an
is,
easement? Is that what?
yeah, this
okay.
was railroad right of way that was vacated and then designated residential. Hence the development proposal now.
Okay.
But in the Gateway Refinement Plan, it speaks to a commemorative plaque of some kind designating the history of,
That sounds like us.
right. So and I think it calls out
We probably need to make.
not the historic commission, but historic something, possibly a body before our inception. But we need to foot the bill. I tried to make it a condition of approval for the property owner, but that was struck down. So we have to do that. Yeah, so.
How big does the
likely-
plaque have to be? No size of
It doesn't
plaque?
say.
Cool.
We can make it as small or as big as we want.
All right.
So yeah.
We might be able to, I don't know, depending what we wanted this to be, it might be an interesting opportunity if the bureaucratic logistical powers allow it to be, to collaborate with the Willamette Valley Railroad Association Club. They're like a huge train club, super into trains, like so into trains. And they might want to collaborate with,
Yeah.
you know, they could maybe put more money to make some really cool thing that
There
they were
we
excited
go.
about.
Unless you can get a wrought iron
Yeah.
plaque where you pitch in, you can get a commemorative stone tablet.
Yeah, or a little, just kidding, like some little something fun, I don't know.
That's
But-
So pretty much all we have right now, I think it's this intersection, yeah. So I walked the whole stretch of it prior to that
Okay.
annexation.
nice.
And on this control box for the lights over here,
Okay.
there's one little bit of history,
Yeah, we did that.
but that doesn't speak to that spur or anything. I think it talks about how Eugene was dry and we were,
Exactly, if you
or something
pan-
like that.
If you kind of pan up. And then do a little bit of this and that way, no, other way.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. This, when you stand here, you're
Yeah.
looking at the view that was this corner.
Oh,
Which is the historic Springfield Hotel that I'm obsessed with. And that is the train car, the rail, the electric streetcar that used to go down Main Street right here. And then when it was dedicated, when they first built the bridge, the train car, the rail car bridge, the dedication of this whole event was right here at that corner. And there was a really neat two-story hotel with big balconies and ladies in fancy hats. And that is that view of that corner, and that's why that is there.
That's very cool.
And the trolley did serve Eugene and Springfield
Yeah.
when there was prohibition in Eugene and not in Springfield, and people used to get sloshed over here and trolley home, and it was a whole thing. And that's where I think a lot of the judgy from Eugene to Springfield is.
So that's really all we have currently, which does not speak to that specific rail line or the spur that was serving,
We
coming
could
downtown.
cover that with a new one, though. We could definitely make one there that
Um,
is. Cause you see the Fry Rankin building cut right there too, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Is that-
Terry.
is
That's
that-
because of the railroad.
okay.
No, is that Main Street?
We're on South A.
Hey.
Oh, okay,
Main up there.
okay.
So this, I would need to go look at the Gateway Refinement Plan again, but it does specifically call out this section as a historic railway, although it doesn't exist anymore. But some sort of commemorative plaque would need to be put up, I think.
I think that's kind of cool, have
Okay.
that little center
Right.
with a bike, you can bike or walk it or.
And that's not like a ODOT right away, that's a us right away.
Technically, it is the county's right of way because we have not jurisdictionally transferred the section that was annexed.
Believe me,
Okay.
my neighbors are county. They're not gonna vote for any of us.
Oh,
That-
If you click on that one, what is that one? Is that the church?
Like, I'm just trying to think like where could this plaque go? You know,
Yeah, that's,
That it doesn't get damaged.
right? And I don't know, I'm more partial to a plaque than like a, side of the box thing.
Yeah.
It feels a little more like,
yeah, I don't think we would have any kind of infrastructure out there, so it would need to
Okay.
be a plaque as far as I'm aware.
I thought it was
Um,
cool.
And how much is a plaque gonna cost? I mean, it can't be.
Yeah, you
I
know,
actually just did a plaque fairly recently. It's about $400
Oh,
plus
really?
installation.
Of course, everything's expensive.
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. and this location too has a lot of guy wires. I don't
Right.
think they're really going to relocate much. This is approved now for two-way access, so there will be
Okay.
in and out at this location instead of the one-way circulation in and then coming out.
Right here. Looking for that church. If you scroll that way a little bit.
Yeah,
Is
is
that the
it?
church?
Yeah, so it looks like it, yes.
So that's the like oldest house in Lane County. That's the house of Mr. Walker, who used to ferry across, and they found all his family underground when they dug up for Riverbend. It's a really important site that's interesting in that it's how it's connected to this.
Another big set of trees then.
So the Lane County Monuments Project has been doing a series of monuments too, and I don't know if if it would be interesting to tie this new signage piece in with the monuments project as well.
It might be better to wait until they get their construction and everything done. so
Yeah.
Get it out of
Yeah.
here where you.
Oh,
Budget wise, I just wanted on.
do they have a timeline? And so it is gonna be in this next biennium, you think?
Yes, we think so. They have their subdivision.
We think, yeah.
Yeah.
They just need to get building permits now,
Okay.
and get their plat recorded, but
Is
that
it a
shouldn't
pit?
take too.
It's a pit, right?
Parts of it are, yeah.
Who's the construction company?
Well, the owner is Mike
You
Ganson,
probably haven't picked the construction
who
yet.
is Mike Ganson Construction. So I'm guessing he's going to do it himself or through his company, yeah.
It would also be interesting because at the Rosa Parks path section down there on Pioneer, like this, is the same rail spur.
Yeah,
And
Hmm.
down there,
Yeah,
you can
okay.
actually see, when you get down to Q Street, is it Q Street or where the overpass is? Yeah, right up. Yeah, oh yeah, you're
yeah,
down
circle, yeah.
right there.
here's-
right there. Yeah, zoom in and then there's a little baby bridge.
Hmm,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that one you can actually see the railroad ties like on the underside of the bridge. Like even driving by, you can see them kind of poking down underneath. Like, yeah, that where that little funny shelter is, it's right there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so under that little footbridge, you can see the remnants of the spur. And then also when it crosses, like where F Street comes into Pioneer Parkway. Like, I'm just wondering if there's an interesting little sequence of
I think we could have
signage pieces that could connect you from like Fry Rankin, where you've got a funny, crazy diagonal chopped off the building,
Mhm.
right? Because of the rail spur.
Right.
And then you see the train tracks in the street on F Street, like literally on the street. If you go down F to your left. Saying,
Making me nauseous.
and pan around.
Right.
Maybe it's E. It's one of these, either E or G. You can see them in the surface of the street. Yeah, maybe it's E. Like when you pull up to the Pioneer Parkway, you can see them. I swear it's a. It would be the other Pioneer though, the north face road. Not in Pioneer, that's on the actual.
And there's the one here, so.
Right.
Good.
Very good. Here, somewhere there's still like an old faded marker on the road and you can see them in the roadbed as you're coming up to the intersection. Oh yeah, see that old X?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and you can actually see the like remnants of
Yeah.
the. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
That's
but
funny.
there's, and I think somewhere you can actually see a little bit of the like there's a
Rail.
line of, not,
Or,
yeah,
well,
something.
rail bed.
There's some remnant.
Interesting.
There's just moments, you know, like these
Sure.
are fun Easter eggs. You could lead people on a history goose chase.
Okay.
Or just if you're taking the bike trail, right? Like.
Sure.
straight.
Okay,
So,
so add that to the
Just
list.
for- yep.
Yeah,
this is our next moneymaker, y'all. Heritage tourism. I'm not kidding.
All
okay. I don't think, anybody else have anything they want to add to the brainstorm? Kind of my vision for the next part of this process is maybe have the gentleman from Independence come and just kind of explain what they do.
Or through Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
easy, yeah.
And then kind of vote to prioritize at either that meeting. Hopefully he can come next time, but either that meeting or the next meeting. And then we'll have a good list of stuff and we can kind of from there allocate dollars and cents to that list of prioritized things.
Yeah, I think that has the most direct positive impact on the Washburn residents, like. It's like a real resource that we can provide that we're uniquely positioned to provide. All the other stuff is like fun stuff, you know, like that we could do forever, but that really is a valuable connector, I think.
This is, I think, one that's come up before, but there is a particular group and that specializes in the economic benefits of historic preservation. And if that's something that would be of interest to our kind of public audience, we could reach out and find out if they would. I think Place Economics might be the name of the nonprofit, and then Don Rivkema is the lead of it. But it's quite interesting to kind of explore the, you know, data-driven cash side of historic preservation for those where that is a question of how do we pay for preservation. It's an important question. So they might be a good resource, but there's probably other things out there. I don't know if that's something that, for instance, if Tom, when you're talking to folks about potential projects, if that question of how to pay for historic preservation is challenged, or I don't know. If that seems like it would be a useful kind of public conversation to have.
Certainly about commercial stuff, I think that's just
Yeah,
hugely
yeah,
valuable.
Okay.
Downtown as a whole.
Well, and I think we've kind of been roughly once a year doing like a workshop thing. Maybe
It'd
it's,
be a neat presentation, like
Yeah.
something at the Wildish, but.
I like that mix of, there's some things that we definitely do. There's some things that are like educational opportunities. And then we pay for a consultant because we have to evaluate a lot of projects.
I wonder if we could team up with the HP program at U of O on that lecture, on the place economics lecture.
That'd be cool.
That's what I was thinking too. And the U of O recently announced the hiring of their new director, and I think she has moved to town or will soon. So maybe once she gets settled, she could drop in and meet everybody in the commission here just to sort of start the conversation early about how we can work with them or benefit from their academic projects or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I've seen repeat efforts to get the mill race integrated into the plan. I know there's there was some master planning done in 1992. There have been more recent projects. Is that something that's got a next phase or some kind of historic connection that?
You mean like Booth Kelly or the little baby stretch at the other? by the river?
Well, it's. Yeah, I guess I was looking at it as a fishing site for my grandson, and it looked like it's pretty well organized and pretty accessible there. But it is definitely in the background in terms of how available it is to people who are visiting Springfield or who are here looking for a place to recreate, you know, it's got a lot of history, I mean, in the sense that it was a key part of the economics of the town, the city.
Yeah, I mean, the real untapped potential is certainly from from like Fifth Street over to the river. Where it's just squalor, like here, it's really beautiful and nice because they did the whole
Yeah,
reconstruction
Right, it
project.
looks like it kind of stops.
But it's this section that like really, it's just the back of all these apartments and there's just, shopping carts and trash dumped in there all the time. And there's amazing potential along there.
Yeah, I walked along there and I wondered what it would take. It looked like quite a daunting task,
Yeah, just
actually.
the old streetcar bridge is the bridge stanchion is down there, which is an interesting historic piece. It's a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like the Chamber of Commerce building was there or something?
It's in
It's
the
on-
depot. It's just.
Yeah, but it wasn't originally there, the,
Yeah, they
Right.
moved it.
there's a building there, I know.
You mean this little building by the bridge?
Yeah,
It's where it used to be an architecture firm. and
oh,
then
it was
a
architecture?
architect's place, and now it's Rainbow Valley. And that's where the bridge stanchion is.
Oh, I thought that was originally,
I don't think so.
well, you could, I don't know.
Yeah, the chambers in the depot building.
Yeah, now,
Close-
yeah,
Close
yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a little signage, little kiosky thing, little arbor over by the chamber about the mill race, but it's
Mm.
definitely still not very accessible. There's not like a really nice little path along it that really invites you down there. It definitely feels a little sketchy.
Right.
Especially as you can't even access it from behind the apartments.
Okay.
It's ripe with opportunity. But we don't have the, I don't
Yeah,
think that's
we-
a project for us. I think that would be maybe a project we urge William Lane to undertake or something.
Yeah, I mean,
See to somebody that
Yeah.
has more dollars, cents.
most places, water and water access means affluence and higher economic standards and stuff like that.
Well, honestly, if you could just loop from the bike path along the mill race trail all the way to
Ah.
the rest of the mill race trail, that would be amazing versus having to jog up to D or.
Yeah, no, it is, it's true, it's always a pain in the rear whenever, yeah. You gotta go on sidewalks or wrong side of the road, or, yeah,
Yeah, it gets cattywampus down
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what we would do with that.
Mm.
Beyond just,
Is it
knowing
part
it's
of the
there.
Conceptual plan, though, I mean, is it on somebody's list of things to do somewhere?
So,
On Jenna's secret list. You can get into the other group. Oh, hey, council members.
okay. All right, any other topics we want to put on the list of things for me to organize for, to rank next time? All right. Then we will move on to historic award kickoff. Your way, Jenna.
Okay, I just made some executive decisions and hopefully nobody gets mad at me and I just went for it and I don't even care.
That's my favorite time of the year.
I know. So I made up a date. I fixed the posters, updated the posters and updated all the content and I'm getting ready to send it to the webmaster to update it online. I have big posters, little posters. If anybody has windows and wants to put them around, or hand them around, the QR code doesn't link quite yet to the new thing, but it will by the
Take a
time
look.
anybody actually sees it. Ideally, anybody that is willing and able would help distribute to places of your bubble, like put them up in places that you think people will see them. The Heritage Awards, for those who are not familiar, are, we have two different categories. And the ultimate goal with all of this is just to help foster and promote heritage stewardship in our city. And so there's two categories of award. One is for people and one is for projects. So one is to recognize cool projects, whether that's a house restoration in the Washburn, or whether it's a neat educational piece or some, amazing set of kiosks or something, right? Or plaques, like some display thing. The Talking Stones, the Calapooya Talking Stones were awarded a couple years ago. We've had a couple building projects recognized, so things that have to do with a building or a project, some physical or educational piece. Physical being paper can be physical as well. Then the people one, it's for, anyone who's really helping to promote stewardship, and that can be like a lifetime achievement thing. It can be, somebody worked on a really cool thing and was integral to that, or is really integral to pushing the, mentality of kind of heritage and stewardship forward. So there's two different categories. And nominations, I made them due July 21st. That gives us some time, assuming this doesn't really get launched for a couple of weeks. That gives a month and a half to get them turned in. We always end up doing extensions, but hopefully this gives us enough time to feel like there was an adequate amount of time. Yeah. All of the application materials are in English and Spanish. And and I was thinking this year for the we have the formal presentation of the award at a city council meeting with a handshake from the mayor. So we need to figure out what date. But we have some time. We're planning to then do the more casual celebration of the winners at a history talk that the museum's putting on in November. So in November, either the 28th or 29th, they're still trying to lock it down. But that's gonna be like at the Wildish with like refreshments, so it can feel a little more fancy than we've done it at the Art Walk the last couple of years, and it just feels a little underwhelming. Like it's always chaos, and there's not really like a good moment to like talk about the recipients. We've had posters up, and that's nice, and the recipients can be there and shake hands. But this will be more of a like celebration of them, which I think is really nice. So yeah, so sometime between when council gets back from recess and November 28th or 29th would be ideal to have the handshake. I will be gone all of October, as I have been the last 3 years. So if it happens then, I won't be there to participate, but I don't have to be.
Will these be at the museum, these posters, if I wanted to?
Yeah.
I don't want.
And we'll send out the PDF, but you can also take some. if you
I don't wanna, I'm
want. Okay.
on my bike.
That's fine. Yeah.
Like that.
This is awesome. Thank you, Jenna, for being the never ending like momentum around this program and keeping it alive and moving forward. It's really cool.
Thanks. You're roped in though too, Charlotte. You're
Can do.
on the committee.
The subcommittee.
I don't know if you knew that already, but we already talked about it a couple meetings ago.
Yeah.
I honestly love
Waiting
it.
Your reappointment.
It gets me like super psyched to hear about cool projects in the community. So happy to do it.
Great.
Yeah. Any questions on that? I think that went well. As always, because Jenna's hyper capable, maybe the most capable of all of us.
The cemeteries were kind of front and center here recently. I don't know how you regard them in terms of their contribution to history, but I was surprised to find out that the
Laurel Grove.
Laurel,
They got the award 3 years ago.
did they? Okay. Now, they've done some cool stuff there,
They have.
looks like.
And there's a solstice tour coming up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, invite people invite people that you hear about to apply. It's a great opportunity to get some recognition. We've got some cool medallions. People can do with what they please, but we'd love if they would display them in some way.
Make them a new belt buckle.
Yeah, make it
There you go.
This would be great.
Maybe it'd be more popular if we offered belt buckles, yeah.
mount them onto their historic home without a
Yeah.
permit.
I did have some people recently, as a brief aside, in line with that, ask like, where could they get a plaque for their house or a replacement one or just something to designate showing that it's a historic house, which my answer was just like contact the plaque place and
We do have a nice little local sign shop we could be recommending, but I don't know if that's showing weird preference then, so. Yeah, I don't know who made the ones that are on the houses and or if there was a program for that, like that's before my time. We could ask some of the previous. committee
and not
members.
all houses are named, so there's that too.
Yeah, there's some nice little wooden
Yeah,
Yeah,
plaques that
yeah.
people have.
and they seem pretty
Yeah.
consistent, so like, was there a like a batch? Did somebody like
Right.
Yeah,
do that
Right.
when they launched the district in 85 or whatever? Like, was that a thing? Should we facilitate another batch being made or something? I don't know. Even if we didn't pay for it, just helping
Yeah.
to organize, so there's sort of, do they want to be standardized? I guess that's the
Yeah.
bigger question. Do they want to have a similar look and feel, or is it okay that they're all very unique?
I can go either way.
I could too, yeah.
I don't know. I think depending on how expensive it would be to do the like consulting
Mhm.
piece, that might be, maybe that's totally within our wheelhouse. Maybe that's not possible, but maybe we could.
Or maybe we leave that up to the homeowners, cause they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
I want one like theirs, and they're gonna take a picture to the sign shop and they'll just make it.
Well, I was thinking we could facilitate like finding someone that will agree to like
Do-
make
Yeah,
very similarly styled ones that kind of do a lot of the like upfront work. And then basically have like a partial
I
pen
actually,
side.
I like the idea that it can be something that is unique to each person and property, partly because I feel like there's a perception that historic preservation is about following the rules and all looking the same. And the sign could, yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the eclectic or the personal touch of people can make it what they want it to be.
one other similar related thing, I don't know if we wanna add to our budgeting list is, are there signposts?
Hmm.
Like, we have some signposts in the district that have a little brass or whatever topper that says it's in the Washburn district. But I don't feel like there's a lot of those.
I've been
I
making
actually wouldn't mind.
observations on that.
That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
Those would be not very expensive either,
I don't- yeah, I don't-
relative to other
and,
projects.
Or
Yeah.
every sign post.
Yeah, for like, to just get them, more consistent, like, it would feel like we were really owning it as a historic district
Yeah.
then versus, I feel like we just maybe have a few around the edges, like, so that you know when you're getting through that gateway.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
the little wood ones on the ground, but just the little cute sign toppers, I feel like really add something.
Yeah, the sign toppers would go a long way, I think, and that's also been on my mind about just the wooden monument signs too, having
Mhm.
an update to those. The Washburn gets squeezed at the bottom, going around the little symbol in the middle. It's a little hard to make out, but yeah.
Would that be a partnership with Public Works to find out whether they already have a stash of those or
I can certainly find
like
out.
if we buy them? I don't know if we can buy them, but if we source them, could they install and replace as needed?
I did recently have some contact with our operations division about a sign replacement for a street sign that was updated.
Mhm.
Or changed the
Is that
name.
the Kiev one?
We were all very.
Well done.
We're putting that in
Very
the
happy.
historic atlas, we're putting
Awesome.
that date.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll get in contact with that person again and see what the lowdown is on signs or the toppers and all of that.
Now, moving, anything else on historic wards, heritage wards? All right, move on to the walking tour guide. Celine is not quite at her time yet, but I think she is here.
I am here. really have much of an update, but this is on my list of things to work on now that I have my weekends back. So please do hold me to bringing you something in June. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Can you remind me, do we have money set aside to print those or anything in our current budget, or is that something we should be thinking about?
Probably something we should think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was on our radar going into this current grant cycle.
It's
Uh,
always just been like such a global, like,
Yeah.
we can fix that one day.
And I mean, yeah, what
Yeah.
we have for printing is typically for any mailers that we need to do,
Mhm.
either planned or emergency stuff like the ice storm last year. And then, that's it. I mean, printing of this stuff, which we typically just do ourselves anyways, because it's not like we need a lot of Heritage Award posters and stuff like that. Although these are on much better.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very
I
nice.
still on cardstock at least.
If we still have our consultant under contract, I wonder if some of her hours could be directed towards a review or help or illustrations for the walking guide, something like that. My memory
Yeah.
is that we had a lot of hours banked with her.
Yeah.
We do, and none have been spent on this cycle. We have not had any projects that have required us to send a review case at least
Yeah.
to the consultant.
So yeah, I mean, if she's willing to do that when do we have to spend our money by?
End of June,
End of June,
This year.
so, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
so it's getting there.
yeah, so it might, Celine, if you could get me a list of things you might want illustrated.
I can do that.
Okay. We'll talk to her and see if that's something she'd be willing to do.
How should I be then thinking about our expenses of the medallions for this upcoming Heritage Awards? Cause I think they're budgeted in,
We make them this year.
which is next month.
As long as they are,
Incurred.
yeah, invoiced or in,
It's tricky because we don't know who it's gonna be yet,
Oh,
how
I
many we're gonna
see.
have. I can have them just generically invoice us for a handful of them and
Yeah.
we just randomly make some fun dummy ones that we can put on display or something if we don't end up needing that many.
I think that's a good call.
Some samples for
Yeah.
the wall.
yeah.
I think let's do
We've
that.
talked about at some point making a kind of like one that goes mounted in City Hall somewhere that lists all the recipients. So if we had, I guess, 2 extras, we could do like generic ones and then do a thing or something. So,
Let's keep adding little nameplate.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay,
So yeah.
so before next meeting, need to invoice.
And then, let's see here. Traditionally, my recollection is we have not met in July. We don't have to decide that today, but be thinking about whether or not we want to meet in July. We'll discuss that next meeting. The window repair workshop, Julie sent an email, said she's working on it.
Potentially, I don't know how much money we need to spend in the next month, right? We have a month.
So
to
yeah,
spend money.
we don't have any, all of our money for trees and education got moved to Dr. Lewis.
I don't think all education.
Okay,
So the Dr. Lewis was allotted under an other amount. That was the additional like 15 or 1600 that we got. So I'll need to see. I need to do a little bit of bookkeeping on our budget spreadsheet and see where we're at with things. Cause we have the consultant for the Washburn survey. That was 9,999. Dr. Lewis is ending up being 4,000. I mean, we haven't really had many other expenses, just small things.
Right.
So,
So
yeah.
we still potentially have money in a tree pile and money in a.
The tree pile went to Dr. Lewis, I
I
think.
think, so. I think that was,
Sure.
yeah, cause we had written that for like, if we could have extra money, what would we put it to? And I think that's what we put the trees to. I'll need to look back and double check on that.
And then we have money in our consultant pile,
Yes, we have all the money.
and how, was that like $2,500 or more?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
1,500, 2,500, something.
Potentially, we need to try to shift that to somewhere before.
And can we get food and drink?
I think so. I think
Okay.
that's the thing. Like, I know, like, for meeting for the Heritage Awards and stuff, like, we couldn't do food and drink for like jury members or whatever, so. One option would be are there materials that Julie might need for this window repair workshop that we could help support? Like, I know she's
What I
willing,
was thinking.
I know she's willing to just do it,
Sure.
but like
Mhm.
also maybe we can make that less impactful for her. Cause she's gonna be using materials for us for that. And is it feasible that in the next month we would be prepared to do a mailer that we could shift some of those funds into the mailer to the Washburn? That means we need to know when the window workshop is and get the flyers made for it and, what were the other things? There was something else important. Getting the link to the design guidelines into some sort of piece of paper.
Okay.
And then that would be great timing for getting nominations for Heritage Awards. Because they'd still have a few weeks left by the time they got their mailer potentially. Would you?
Sounds like things might be happening in July. We may want to meet then. See how we feel.
Cause like the mailer is like $900, right? To do all
I
that stuff.
think so.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if we wanted to do something about trees, we could potentially, but it sounds like we don't need to. I was just gonna say, not a survey, but would it be worth having? You know, if we needed to pay the Whitey guy, for example, to give us his write-up that he already has about all of the trees, you know, like,
Right.
could we buy out that information
Yeah.
or something and publish it in a little booklet? But that's a bigger project for a month.
I will talk to Julie.
Be,
About
be
the-
firm.
Yes.
She's gonna be like, "No, that's okay, I don't need it."
Mhm.
No, let us pay for some of this. Don't be so nice all the time.
I think that's. We'd have to talk to Shippo a little bit, but I think that fits under our education pretty
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Our line item for that. Actually, all of this does.
Do we
Um,
have we talked to CMO at all about like, if we team up with her, like this is a hands-on workshop, people could like staple their hand to something, like what is, we need some sort of just like event waiver from the city. Like, I think it just. needs-
Among the materials that we could provide would be PPE. That's the kind
Yeah.
of thing that, you know, I'm sure she has things for her crew, but be a good thing for us to do. Would love it if we could send participants home with a little like lead test kit or something, but
Oh,
those
yeah.
are hard to find these days.
Interesting.
Yeah, or a little glazing putty knife for everybody
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. I think she said she was expecting that like 8 participants was about the capacity, but it was still a little early in the plans, right? Elise, if you want to keep that action item, go for it. If you would like to delegate it to me to work on details with Julie, I'm also available. So whatever's best for you.
Actually, can you get details from her?
Mhm.
I can do the other, I can maybe put together. Well, do we have a postcard template somewhere? We've done them. Surely we have.
I mean, I have the one that has the map and everything on it, but it's just a
Okay.
very specific format. I do it through Moo.
Okay.
But if you send me the content you want, I can throw it on a postcard.
Okay, I'll,
If you forward the email to me that you got from Julie, I'll respond there and carry it on.
perfect. Okay.
Even if, I feel like even if, like, if we could expand the reach of the program to 20. But if Julie has to like have one of her, like pay one of
Yeah.
her staff to help, like, that seems like the great opportunity to like use our funds, right? Like,
I was thinking that too, and if it also involves maybe extending the workshop and doing it kind of 2 pieces, for the thing that she has in mind that can take 8 people, is happening for 2 hours and we, or in partnership with the museum, are doing something related outside of the shop maybe, and then the group switch or something, if there is a comfortable way to expand capacity, that could be a really nice way to kind of capture the momentum.
Well, and especially if that means we're just moving the money from one historic consultant to
Yeah.
another historic consultant, right? This is really just another historic
It's true.
consultant, which is, maybe
It's
that's an
true.
easy way to do that.
Do we have an idea of how much money we would like to contribute to this event? Because that might be a really effective way to ask Julie what we can do. If we
I
say,
think-
you know,
I think it's whatever is left minus the money for the postcard, minus medallions.
mhm. So we tell her we certainly would like to cover the mailers or printers and work on getting the word out. And then,
Do we want to have a fresh, just its own postcard for the design guidelines? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it could be integrated onto the back of the existing one, but we have a bunch of the existing ones still that we
Right.
need to send out.
do we have the flexibility to pay Julie for her time if we're willing to help compensate one of her crew?
I have as soon as we start, I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know what Shippo would think.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, she would just be replacing our consultant, right?
Yeah.
But
That's what I was thinking.
like, it seems like once we figure out how much money we have and which other expenses we have, then whatever's left, we potentially contribute to that program.
Just have something.
Cause it'd be nice to spend it all.
Yeah, we
That's
want
the
to
whole
spend it
thing.
all.
Sure.
Okay. Charlotte, I'll get you Julie's email.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Jenna, I'll get you other stuff.
And that's, the new postcard will also still have to include the big block of language that I had put in that email about how we allocate these funds.
Oh, yeah.
If we have time in our meeting, I have a brief NOA to offer.
Please, yeah. we
Okay.
do.
Just for everybody's awareness, there is SHPO is going through a rough time right now. I don't know if that's on folks' radar, but among the many public programs that are being impacted by federal actions and freezes on funding right now, the state historic preservation offices in every state and territory across the country funds were obligated to those agencies and then have been frozen and not released. So our SHPO has had to lay off a number of staff in this last month, and many SHPOs around the country have had to swiftly cut their staff by as much as 50%. So it is something that I think, as folks who are working in this space and have been the recipients of national, like federal dollars that go to SHPO and then get passed through to us, it's worthwhile to kind of be keeping an eye on that at the very least, so that we are the audience. We are the folks who are going to be impacted by that funding freeze. So wanted to put that on everyone's radar. If that's of interest, I can share links to information about it. But in particular, the National Council of SHPOs, NICSHPO, has released they've done some press releases and sort of advocacy, phone calling, letter writing, things like that. So just something to have on our radar.
Could impact how much we get on this next one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all passed through, I think.
Mhm.
Much of it.
There was the initial freeze scare and then
Yeah.
that kind of went away, which allowed us to keep going on this cycle, but yeah, we'll see what happens next one.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, seeing none, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 5:40. Thank you all for the wonderful work.
Thank you.